Good morning. So let's do this. This is a recap of last night's Joth session. We are in Blackfish Bay. We've been in Blackfish Bay quite a while. It's been a fantastic location in Todd's campaign world of Joth. 33rd session. I think this has been ongoing for roughly 4 years. This started with DCC with Mark and oh God, I can't remember everybody was in those first sessions. And so we've had consistency with a core group of guys, and we've had some in and out people coming in and out, which is cool with these kind of big campaigns. People come in and out, play different characters, etc. And then of course, I think we've been using, or they've been using, obviously me as well, but Old School Essentials became the game for this. Again, Joth is a agnostic for the most part, I believe, which means Todd could use any OSR, D20, or old D&D, or anything he wanted to for this, um, which is smart, right? You don't have to write a campaign world that uses exact rules from a game system like monster blocks and things, right? He can use charts and tables and whatever, right? Okay, so Arig, my character, 17-year-old farmer's son turned fighter, on in a way a somewhat of a retribution, vengeance. Personally wants vengeance on this creature that's murdered his family, and he wants to secure his home farm so he can reside there, make a living there, and return to being a farmer. We have Dell's character, Trotter Fingersmith, a halfling from Briggett's Bottom, a entrepreneur, as Todd says, capitalist entrepreneur. Arig says troublemaker, thief. That's how Arig feels about this guy. My family would still be alive. My siblings, my family would still be alive had he not desecrated the tombs beneath our farm, so to speak. So of course, Arig has this baggage that Trotter is to blame for all of it. Really, who's the real monster here, right? The Grudge Guardian or Trotter Fingersmith? It's great, dude. It's great fun. This can only happen from just play, right? Emergent story, emergent from emergent play. It's just so fun. David is Lauren, a human fighter, and uh, he has been manipulated by Trotter, or Trotter's attempted to manipulate him. We've had some great role play. We have some really interesting character interactions. He returns. John was unfortunately not able to make it. He is our dwarf bomber. He is our resident. In a way, Bomber, John's character, the dwarf Bomber, kind of keeps some sand. It kind of keeps us somewhat grounded and sane. I think there's a certain stability in Bomber's role in the party, and also he's helping us quite a bit with this Grudge Guardian problem, in that he's a dwarf. He understands this lore. He can read the language. So he was a kind of a paramount in us understanding much what was happening to us through the analyzing of runes and reading murals and giving us history of the dwarven culture and what must have happened. And he's the one that kind of explained to us how the only way we can destroy this Grudge Guardian is this particular ritual or this particular path. So in a way, so we certainly missed Bomber the last couple of sessions, because there's not to mention uh, uh, the OS, the old school old D&D games are very lethal, so you like to have as much help as possible, right? Especially when you're dealing with a creature like this Grunge Guardian. Okay, and then of course Jory returns as Helmer. He was with us a few sessions ago as he was introduced to the party, and Helmer returns, and he takes up with us in this session. Um, so last session we escaped in the middle of the night as the Grudge Guardian awakes at dawn, at when darkness falls and the sun is down. The Grudge Guardian manifests itself and it hunts us. And so we were all holed up in a church, all but Trotter Fingersmith, who was sleeping soundly in his tavern bed, in shenanigans above shenanigans. Um, And we all held up in the local church, thinking there would be some spiritual protection from this thing. Well, we were wrong, as it waylays through town, taking out gates and doorways, and it's a catwalk, docks, lake city. So everything occurs on docks. I mean, on on wooden walkways, floating off the Lake of Talons. It's a dock based, a lake based city. So this thing, hones in on us and tears through town, gets to the chapel, starts cutting the door, hacking the doors down. And anyway, we all escape onto Trotter's boat and row off into the night and anchor out there in the night. This is how session 31 ended, with a grunge guardian the entire night, standing on the edge of the dock, wailing and screaming that it was going to kill us. Desecrators all night long. So session 33 opens with the sun coming up as the grunge guardian finally dematerializes as the sun arises. And of course, we've all been up all night long listening to this thing taunt us and yell and scream. So Lauren suggests we head directly back to town and help repair the village, because this thing went through gates and went through doors and tore holes in walls to get to us. And Arig also reminds Lauren that, well, we had handed out tickets to rioters that they needed to, their punishment was to go to the Tam farm and help us excavate the tomb. And so he wrote tickets to everybody that was rioting at the church, because we are deputized by the Reeve, right? We are all deputized. So there was a bit of a riot in last session, and David basically hands out tickets to all these guys, and tells them your punishment is to arrive at Tam Farm and dig tomorrow, right? Okay, so I remind them we also have to get back to the farm and see, how many of these people come to do their, pay their punishment. We get back to the town. We row back to the town and discover that the actual citizens of the town are already repairing the buildings and things themselves. So we just kind of skirt through town and go directly to Tam's farm, where we find, of all the rabble rousers that there, 6 showed up. And of course, for Arig's, from my point of view, 6 is better than none. We'll take it, get to work, start digging. And we agree, as Lauren, we arrived and we find out the 2 of the graves of former adventurers had been unearthed again, their remains scattered about. And also the mouth of this tomb, smoke is billowing out of the mouth of this tomb. And so instantly we're like, okay. So Lauren investigates, says to the 6, where is everybody? And, well, here we are, this is what we are. And he says, who did this? Did you do this? And no, they denied it. Where's that fire coming out of the tomb? They're like, we don't know. We just got here with our shovels and our picks ready to dig. We don't know anything. So while Lauren's soliciting detailed information from this group of laborers, Arig walks off to best of his memory where he believes the center of this tomb might be. So he literally counts off steps and kind of marks out a 30 by 30 area and 900 square foot area, and assigns these 6 guys and tells everybody to start digging down and inward, while we investigate the tombs. Trotter stays up top, on his mule, basically supervising the workers. So Trotter doesn't go into the tombs with us to investigate the smoke. We agree we're going to leave the bodies in the state they're in right now. Why rebury them yet again, to have them unearthed yet again? The goal eventually to either bury these, I think either to rebury these bodies once we've dealt with the Grunge Guardian. Arig believes the Grunge Guardians who unearthed this, but who knows? Or as Trotter suggests, we bury them at sea. We bury them in the lake where this thing won't, harass these dead adventurers. Which was one of John's characters, which was Trotter's partners when we found the tomb and we desecrated the tomb. Originally, we were victims of the Grunge Guardian. My character, Gary, and one of John's characters. I think we succumbed to a floor trap, actually. No, Gary was killed by a giant rolling ball trap. It crushed his body between the wall and a giant ball, and John's character died falling in a collapsible floor. But not a trap so much as just the floor gave way, I think. If I remember right. It might have been a trap, I don't know. But anyway, Trotter was the only one to survive that, and he, of course, looted the tomb and setting off this grunge guardian to hunt us, right? And the reason it's going after me is my father owns the land. My father hired the three adventurers to, not my father, but Tam, the NPC, hired us, the adventurers, to do this. So, whoever was involved, this thing hunts down, right? That's what we know anyway. That's what we can glean from everything that's occurring. Okay. Okay. So we go into the tomb. The title of this session was Sleeping in Odd Places because we were forced to sleep on the boat in the lake to stay away from the Grunge Guardian at night. And we go back into the tomb, and we know there's a particular stairs down into the main floor that we're aware of, as far as we've ever gone. We've only gone so far in this tomb, ironically. But one of the stairs has this gas that will, it will knock you unconscious. And again, Avery believes it's one of the steps, stepping on one of the steps is what triggers it. So I try to skip down it by two jumps, hit the middle step and to the bottom. Well, unfortunately, I succumb to the gas and pass out at the bottom of the stairs. Laura tries to navigate down the stairs by stepping over every other step. He ends up succumbing to the gas, as does Helmer, and we end up all in a clump of bodies at the bottom of the stairs, sleeping soundly. And so again, sleeping in odd places. So Lauren's the first to awake. Fortunately, we're not harassed by any creatures or anything. And then he wakes us up, and we proceed to follow the smoke down here. Where is it coming from? And it leads us to the long passage west, double passage with pillars in the middle. This is where Trotter had found the elven golden fox knight. I think he was some kind of royalty elven warrior called the Golden Fox, and he desecrated the tomb, stole the armor, stole the jewels, stole the treasure. But the floor in this room to walk you down to the crypt, or to the resting elven warrior, right? The floor collapsed, and this was in many weeks ago in game time, right? So the floors collapse. We get there, and we're trying to decide, where's it coming from? We can't really see from here where the smoke's coming from. We can see it seems to be less actually than more, so maybe it's dwindling. Maybe, but we don't see flames. We don't really smell cooking or anything like that. But we can't drop down into the floor below. We don't have any adventuring tools. We literally went into this tomb with no rope, no 10-foot poles. We went in with our armored equipment to investigate why there was smoke coming out of the tomb, but we're ill-equipped to go any further. And Helmer says, listen, I think we've seen all we can see here. Let's go back. So Helmer, says, kind of expedites us out of there. It's like, we're wasting our time. Let's get out of here. So we leave, and Helmer's a little nervous about the whole deal, right? Okay. We get up top. We find out they've done a pretty good job. They've dug as well as they can. I send one of the younger, weaker people to town to purchase food and provisions and wine, whatever, bring it back to feed all the laborers. And we work out a plan. We want to dig to it until before dark, and then we want to load everybody up on the boat and get out into the lake where the Grudge Guardian cannot harass us. Why this becomes important, of course, is to protect us. We know it's after us, but Arik has a pang of conscience that we didn't tell Helmer that he could well be cursed for going into the tomb with us. So we have to kind of break that news to him on the boat later in the evening. Oh, by the way, Helmer, you may well be marked by this Grunge Guardian as well. But Arik has a pang of conscience that do we just let these people go back to their homes in the village, because they are now digging. Now they haven't been in the tomb, but how do we know they aren't also now targets of this grunge guardian? So Arig has a pang of responsibility that if we just send these people home, they may all become victims of this thing. And so we decided to load them on the boat, we just under the idea that this is part of their punishment. They aren't free to go home. They'll be free to go home when they dig up and expose the architecture of the tomb to the sunlight, because our goal digging it up is to expose the entire tomb to sunlight, so we can then go about destroying the grunge guardian's body, right? There's a ritual for us to destroy this body to end the curse. Okay, so we have a plan, but who knows how, right? But at night, we still have to get the heck out of Dodge until we've done this, right? So we're on the boat. We're packed on there, like 19 of us crammed on this boat, trying to sleep. Arig settles the tensions by handing out rum to all the laborers, and trying to make it as positive and festive. So I give second rounds of rum to everybody, so to speak. And we get through the night, and we hear at some point in the evening a wailful moaning from the east shore of the Lake of Talons, which wakes us, and for the most part makes sleeping difficult as we listen to this wailing thing. Eventually, it wanders off further east out of earshot. And this is at the edge. So we have no clue what this mournful, wailing creature is on the east shores. But as Lauren says, or David says, that is far more creepy than anything else we've, right? Again, the imagination just goes, what the hell was that, right? And imagine this thing doing this for who knows how long and keeping us awake. But we don't hear the grunge guardian. But we're far enough away from that shore that most likely we wouldn't hear the grunge guardian's roars. Matter of fact, Trotter ordered them to get further away so we wouldn't have to listen to the grunge guardian's nonsense. Okay, but we survive on the lake without a problem. We managed so far through the whole session. So again, we're using Roll20, a tabletop simulator, for all of our dice rolls and for maps. And Todd rolls for his normal Wandering Monster encounters, which again, anybody who plays old school, there's no mystery to how we do this thing, right? You roll for Wandering Monsters every day, so many hours of the day, however GM wants to adjudicate the number of times. And we have quite literally seen the dice drop in Roll20, and we know that he hasn't unearthed an encounter or a Wandering Monster, and it's amazing. He's rolling 6s and 5s. So we're not stupid. We know we're going to survive another turn, right? We're going to survive another day, right? Let's see here. So the next morning, we decide to go straight back over there and put them to work. And we're getting off the boat, we're unloading, and we're going to get them back to work and start excavating as fast as possible. And I turned to the captain of our boat and I asked him if he'll sell us some rope. And he sure enough sells us 30 feet of rope, and I give him a couple of silver. Trotter turns to him and says, for that 2 silver, all of you men need to come help us excavate. And they work for Trotter, but of course, they grumble about it. Trotter does finally win them over with promises of pay, and they all agree to join the dig. So I guess it's 14 laborers digging. And I stopped Trotter on the way out of the boat, and for the first time in our knowing each other, the young Arig, I feel compelled to thank him for that. Seeing now that maybe Trotter isn't completely selfish, but I think he is. But at least Arig is grateful that he convinces the men to join the dig to get this done. And so it was pretty cool. Again, role play. When I'm in the head of the character, I think and perceive everything from Arig's point of view, whether I'm in character or first person acting or whatever. I try to take in all game information, all narrative information from the perspective of my character. And for me, that's role playing, right? That's what this is about. It isn't about gaming the game. It's about being a character in these situations. So I feel compelled to thank Trotter for that. And so Trotter begrudgingly, But Trotter can only be won over ultimately by the story that I tell him, that we're going to buy up all the farms there in that row, and we're going to turn it into the biggest amazing farm and fishery or something in all of Blackfin, in all of the the northern realms, so to speak. So I've helped motivate Trotter by telling him the grand tales of what we're going to achieve when we get this tomb secured. So we go back, we put them all back to work, and we decide to all go back into the tombs, and we work our way back around. We use the rope. I cut the rope in half, so we got 15 feet to get down one side. We cross the room over the rubble. We use the rope on the other side to climb back up into the chamber. And of course, Trotter tells us, I've been all over this. There's nothing at that end. I don't know what smoke you're talking about, but it's a dead end. It's just it's the end of this crypt. But we have to see for ourselves, right? We have to confirm it. And we cross and we get up there, and there's the sarcophagus, open, ajarred. Somebody has taken the stone lid and leaned it up against the back wall. And we discover the cause of the smoke from yesterday, and it is somebody has burned the golden fox's bones, it looks like, in the crypt. We don't know who, we don't know why, they're smoldering, but we now know where the smoke came from. Somebody burned the golden fox's bones. Golden Fox, again, is an elven warrior known as the Golden Fox, elven lord or something. Aeric, still can't believe, well, who would come in here, who would do this? And we haven't seen any evidence that there's been campers or squatters or anything. So I searched the walls looking for doors and passages. And again, I don't say I want to search for doors and passages particularly. I try to describe, Aeric doing a thing, touching the wall, rubbing his hands on the wall. And of course, I failed that role. And Aeric, in frustration with Trotter, that's what's yammering on about what are you doing? It's a waste of time. It's a dead end. Let's get out of here. And Helmer, of course, wants to get out of here because Helmer now is, of course, recognizing the danger that he's been put in. And sure enough, we discover there is nothing more for us to do here. It's a mystery. We don't know who burned the bones, but they've been destroyed. So we evacuate the tombs. We decide we'll leave anything else till later. The most important pressing thing is to excavate and dig up and expose the architecture below to sunlight the best we can. So we go back up top to see the situation, and sure enough, some of the workers have hit pay dirt. They have hit stones, which would be the stone ceiling. So they dig down to the dirt and they get to the bedrock, so to speak. They get to the actual tombs, and they begin to work loose stones. Some of the stones topple into the layer below. Some of them are removed, with the earth, and we're able to drop a torch in, and Abric sticks his head in, and the torch happens to land at the crossroads, which there's a hallway, set of hallways that were crossroads, which is the farthest we ever got. When the Grunge Guardian first appeared and killed Jocko, one of my characters, the cleric, was beheaded in front of everybody in an instant by this creature, and we all ran like hell and have not been back to the tombs until this day. And that's where I took over the torchbearer Aeric, and that's where I assumed Aeric as my next character. Right? But this particular portion of the tombs is important because on every wall was a mural of Bomber, our dwarf, was able to tell us what these murals meant and decipher them to some degree. And this is where we were also able to remove some gems and things. And we recalled that the murals had sparkly minerals in the walls. And so I teased Trotter at some point too that, remember, the reason we want to excavate this, Trotter, or imagine the treasure and the riches that are still there that we have yet to find. And of course, the torch illuminates the sparkling walls. Neighbor pops his head up, smiles, and says, "Jackpot! We're right over the cross, and we just now need to excavate this away." And Arig goes around patting all the laborers for their hard works and tells them we've got more work to do, but he pays them all a silver piece to keep up morale, but also to remind them that they're getting paid very well for this work, despite it being six of the 8 are being punished for rioting in the streets of Blackfish Bay. And we agree that we need to get this dug up as quick as possible before and deal with this before we can do much more. And Fade to Black, another great session. This was great. I was more immersed in this session probably than I have been. I don't know why. Maybe I was more relaxed. I don't know, but I found myself definitely the pacing of this for me and again, I've said this before, Dale says at the end of the session, Todd really does pace. The ebb and flow of the game is paced in such a way we have plenty of time to come into game and into character, and there's just a natural flow in and out of role play, into game mechanics, in and out, and it is what we have done. This is how we did this thing as, I won't say as kids, but this is just the way many of us just learn to play. And but of course, I believe it's perfected by experience, it's perfected by awareness, the want to play a particular way. And Todd is fantastic at this. This was just we were lucky, as Todd said, pointing out all the 6s he rolled that would have been wandering monsters or potential encounters. And we just had a session where we got completely lucky with any of these things that could have sent the session in another way. So we really achieved quite a bit. We finally got back. We got the labors working. We were able to dig up some stuff. We're really making progress, but the progress occurs because we're focused as characters on a task at hand, and we haven't been interrupted. Right? We weren't interrupted by a beast showing up or whatever might be on those encounter tables that Todd checks once we fail miserably. Once he hits the magic number on the wandering monster or encounter die, and then he rolls up his tables, we don't know what's coming, right? And that's the joy of what makes the world alive, and that's the joy of what players generally are, as characters, come up with plans of things they want to achieve and do, and this is emergent play, and then we have with an emergent motivations, so to speak, and that this creates an emergent story as we tell the story that are the results of what has transpired, the characters, the events, in a old school open world sandbox hex crawl, whatever terms you want to use for this, right? This is kind of how we've always done it, right? There's a little bit of hex crawl, there's a little bit of open world sandbox, there's a little bit of it is what makes old D&D so versatile. It's what allows this kind of campaigning to go on for years and years and years and years. Again, I know some GMs come up with vast worlds with evil bad guys, and the characters come to the session to be heroes. Romance of the Perilous Lands. I am going to run that at some point again, and the conceits of Romance of the Perilous Lands is you are heroes. You're not going to make thugs, and you're not going to make anti-heroes. You're going to make characters that want to aid in getting rid of the evil. So part of the conceit of Romance of the Perilous Lands is when you create a character, your goal is to become not a hero, so to speak, but to work on the side of good to thwart the evil. And I think that's a good thing to have. D&D is general, and D&D does not tell players when they make a character what their characters are about. You can be chaotic, neutral. You can be chaotic. You can be neutral. You can be lawful. And again, there's this assumption that you're your own entity joining a party to do adventure. That's the gist of basic D&D, right? Obviously, GMs who've got campaigns, they're going to tell the players this is kind of what the reason you're doing a thing, maybe, or at least to compel the players as to why they would be involved in this. But a game like Romance of the Perilous Lands says, no, your characters are working to aid, the Robin Hood, or aid King Arthur's, King Arthur, or aid, in bringing into pushing back the evil, so to speak. And so your goal is to become a member of those things. Eventually, your character would be invited to the round table, or become a merry man, or whatever. So this is what makes also Romance of the Perilous Lands an intriguing game to me, because there are these conceits that you make a character that is traveling the world, is traveling the kingdom, helping thwart this evil, right? And there's something very compelling about that. You have a reason to be doing the things you're doing, not just adventure, so to speak, right? Obviously, this style of play, we don't, our motivations, we can come to the table as a character that has a particular motivation, or we grow natural motivations through the results of play, right? Arig is invested in his family farm. He first invested in vengeance, then invested in survival because he realizes I can't get vengeance, but I got to survive. And more importantly, I've got to secure my family farm so I can retire Arig as the, to back to the farm. I don't intend on Arig being a 10th level fighter out in Joth. Arig, once we secure this farm and we put our plans into effect as to how we want to secure more land and grow a giant farm, so to speak, Arig would be compelled to retire onto his family farm and run this farm, so to speak. And I like that. I don't mind if Arig retires at level 4, Arig retires at level 5, whatever it takes when he survives. And when these things are secured, there's nothing wrong with me retiring Arig as Arig Tam, in Blackfish Bay, getting his family farm back on its feet. And then I'll make another character, right? And Arig can still be brought out of retirement at level 5 fighter if we have to protect the village from a dragon, a horde, or bandits or something. So those sessions can always happen. I think Dell's, Ignatius, who owns Shenanigans, that's one of Dell's characters. Dell could, if it had to, he could always pull Ignatius back into action. But it's cool to have these former characters become meaningful NPCs of the village, meaningful people in the village, as opposed to just NPCs that Todd's created. Tam now would become, at some point, as Tam ages and becomes an important citizen in the Blackfish Bay as a farmer or whatever, he becomes an NPC, so to speak. That's interesting, right? Okay. Great games, great session. And a lot of this we do in the dark because Discord can't handle all of our video very well. Plus, we've got Roll20 going, and so I kept my video on, and Todd kept his video on. But and I don't mind that. When I first came on to online gaming, we used Skype, and we did it in the dark. We didn't use video for a number of reasons. One, guys wanted privacy, and it was just. And I'm an as you might not have recognized, I'm an orator. I like to talk, but I also learn more from listening than I do seeing, right? So I'm an audio learner. So I'm really, really cool with I call it in the dark gaming. We can't see each other. However, you always miss cues. You certainly miss facial expressions. You certainly miss the subtle cues in communication, which are also lost in video online gaming because I might be looking at David when I'm GMing and I say something, but David, can't tell from these little boxes maybe that I'm looking at him, right? But if we were at a table, I could look right at David and say something. David wouldn't have to wonder, are you talking to me? So online gaming, the communication is never perfect in online gaming. When you shut off the videos, it does become very much verbal communication, and I think it can work beautifully, right? It can work beautifully. So I don't dislike in the dark gaming, and I've had some of my best sessions online have been in the dark gaming where we literally had to listen and we literally had to communicate. So works great. So anyways, that's session 33. We have achieved quite a bit, I would argue, thanks to the dice gods, the old school D20 Wandering Monster dice gods were on our side yesterday. And again, I don't take it for granted that we have survived 2 days. This group has survived 2 days in Blackfish Bay, 2 game days of world time, 2 days of world time without any dangerous conflict. So that's pretty huge for us. So great fun. I want to thank the guys again, David and Jory for joining us, and Dell, and of course Todd for running it. This is what we do. This is why we do it. It's fantastic. So you'll hear me very often. I will be blunt about D&D, original D&D. I'll be very blunt about early D&D from the 70s and 80s. I'm very blunt, and I'm not I'm not afraid to acknowledge the reality of these games. I'm not afraid to point out the warts on these games and systems. But I'm also that doesn't stop me from my passion for them, and it doesn't stop me from loving them and playing them and running them, because I've run them since I've come back to gaming 12, 13 years ago. I've been running them steadily. So because I'm able to be completely honest about the experience, it doesn't stop me from loving it and appreciating it and it being. So a lot of people might hear some of my remarks, like our Traveler conversation. I'll make remarks about old D&D, comparing original, 1980 D&D with Traveler, those two games coming out roughly the same time, and one does something particularly, has a design intent completely and utterly different than D&D's design intent. And that's just an honest, truthful observation. The two are completely different. And I'll point out what D&D really, or at least my opinion of what D&D really was and really is, doesn't affect whether it's brilliant role playing or can't become brilliant role playing, and what Traveler was saying that it was about, what it was going to do. So there'll be people who will perceive that as me bashing D&D. Well, again, anyone who knows me knows OSR, the D20, and especially this particular style of gaming as a GM and as a player are still, I'm drawn to and will always be drawn to. And it's not just nostalgia. I've had plenty of people say, well, that's nostalgia. I dig it for nostalgia, right? But no, I'm discovering as a player how much I'm enjoying this emergent play, right? This emergent characterizations, these emergent relationships. Lauren getting to know Arig slowly maybe softening his attitude about Trotter, as Trotter's at least endeavored to help us do this, right? Without, still hoping to cash in, and these become emergent relationships, right? So we end up with meaningful characters and meaningful relationships and meaningful gaming, but they're not guaranteed a meaningful death, right? The meaningful death comes from losing a character that had meaning to us. And that's the way it should be, right? You're going to lose characters. They're not the star of the show. The ones that survive somehow become star of the show. And that's, you play long enough that you end up with characters that do survive and do become, in a way, the heartbeat of the campaign. And so you'll certainly mourn them when they go. But the one thing about something like Dungeons and Dragons is you have to work right through survival and work through deliberate strategic play to survive, and then some luck of the draw, like dice fall in your way, or like yesterday, no wandering monsters, no encounters showed up during what we wanted to achieve could have been slowed down by actual events that we'd had to survive or deal with. And that's the reward of playing something like this over time, right? I know a lot of guys, they say, we're going to sit down, play AD&D, and we're going to create meaningful characters, and we're going to apply all this. And then they're going to have a GM who soft soaps or keeps them alive, or maybe, right? And that to me is not how D&D was designed. You might literally go through 5 or 6 characters before you start to develop a party of characters that end up with relationships. I know a lot of people, a lot of rule books have attempted to say, let's skip that part and just make it hard to kill these characters. Well, then it changes the gaming into something else, right? It changes the gaming into something that the original D&D, there's a certain experience you won't get if you don't work through this myriad of lives to then develop emergent characters and emergent relationships and emergent story, etc. And so anyway, thank you all for watching. It's been a recap of Joth, Blackfish Bay, session number 33. Todd, fantastic. Thank you. Bye-bye.